Well, hello and good morning, Facebook friends, and whatever you're doing today, we hope to take a few minutes to join us here. We're going to have an important discussion. It's an important day today. It's World Suicide Prevention Day, and there's a few things happening around town to support that. And in fact, throughout the entire month, but we wanted to invite our friend Liz Page from Clair Child Youth Services. Thanks for being here, Liz.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
I appreciate it. World Suicide Prevention Day. Well, it's pretty obvious what that's about, but what kind of things are happening to put out the support? I guess we need to do it every day, but this is just a day to create that awareness.
Absolutely. So our Sarnia Lambton Suicide Prevention Committee has been working really, really hard to raise awareness around the city and to sort of start the conversation and hopefully carry it on throughout the entire year. But definitely, sort of that visual reminder, the yellow ribbons you see around trees and pillars and porches, and the signage on businesses that say, World Suicide Prevention Day 2019 or Give Hope a Voice, just trying to have some real visual cues for folks so that they're aware of the messaging and tuned in and making sure that they're being kind and empathetic to maybe somebody who's struggling or,
Right.
support, directing people to the resources that they need to access.
Yeah, because I guess it's typically we don't think about it all the time, I guess, unless it's something that has happened to us. And other than that, we go on about our day, right? Is that sort of the reason for all of this too?
I think sometimes that's the case, and I know our community has been profoundly impacted by suicide, and I think that Sarnia does a really great job of being responsive and supportive. And then life gets busy, and we get sidetracked, doing the grind, the rat race, and multitasking, and we forget to really tune in and connect with people sometimes, and check in with them, and even the people who, seem to be doing well. It's important to just check in and make sure they're doing well.
Yeah. There seems to be a lot of conversation about mental health. I mean, I know I've had you on here before, and we've had our discussions in person, and the conversation just comes up in regular conversation. So I guess that's a good thing that we're talking about it more, but we've still got quite a ways to go.
I agree. I think that we're doing a good job around having the conversation and working on decreasing the stigma, but there's always room for improvement. You and I have talked about the 1 in 5 statistic. 1 in 5 people struggles with mental illness, but really it's 5 in 5 people who are impacted by that, which means family members, friends, coworkers. Everyone is impacted if someone's struggling.
Yeah. There seems to be a good response from this community. Like, today, you hear talk about tiny yellow ribbon. And in fact, I've even seen some signs. I think I saw Adam Dumont from Royal LePage had made up signs and is saying, come and pick these up and put them on your lawn. So and I guess where do we start to prevent all of this? I'm guessing that it's aside from the talking, like at a younger age, is that where we need to recognize and to recognize, like, I'm not that educated person. How do I know how to recognize it?
Sure. So some people have the misconception that if you talk about suicide, it will sort of create thoughts for people, or sort of encourage them to have suicidal thoughts, which is a myth. So it's important that we start those conversations with young people and be blunt and say, are you having thoughts of killing yourself? And sometimes that's a huge relief for people, or and even older people. I mean, one of the highest risk groups is middle-aged men. So having those really tough conversations and asking them outright, are you thinking of killing yourself, can be a huge relief for someone who's struggling with thoughts of suicide and is afraid to reach out.
Right.
Not an easy. I know the schools. Certainly are. They wrestle with how much do they talk about it, and what's the appropriate age to start, and all of that. So, I think the Canadian Centre for Excellence is a great place to start around looking at what's best practices, what's gold standard, and what can our community be doing to be in line with that. I know there's a provincial suicide prevention strategy in the works, and agencies have been collaborating to sort of create that provincial strategy, which will help with the consistent messaging across our province.
Right. The question though, like when you say to ask somebody the question of, hey, are you thinking of killing yourself? That's not an easy question to ask. I think, like I've heard of talk about, recognizing people you work with maybe having issues, but I don't know. I don't know if I mean, I might work with you and pass you in the hall every day, and we might even have a coffee at lunch, but I don't know how I could come up to you and say, "Hey, are you doing okay?" Like I could. Did you know what I mean? Is that's got to be awkward for people?
I'm sure it is. Everybody has
I don't
varying
want to
degrees.
offend you. I don't want to, right?
No. Yeah. I think everyone has varying degrees of comfort with that kind of a tough conversation. But starting with, hey, are you okay? I've been kind of concerned about you, is a good starting point, right? Or, hey, I've noticed that you seem really down. Is everything okay? I've noticed a real change in your personality lately.
Yeah.
There's a really great training called Safe Doc training, and it's about 3 hours long. And the Suicide Prevention Committee has several trainers, and they offer the training several times a year. So I think that's a great place to start and to arm yourself with some really practical strategies on how to sort of support someone and direct them to the appropriate resources.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, we don't expect everyone to be, counselors. We don't expect people to be therapists. We just hope that they can be supportive and empathetic, validate someone's pain, and help them get to the appropriate resource.
Yeah. Well, you sort of answered my next question. Is there training for that, which is fantastic. And, to point out to people too, that especially St. Clair Child Youth Services is working all year to create this awareness. It's not just today. Today's just kind of an extra standout day for all of this, because I know there's a lot of different, programs happening with St. Clair Child Youth Services. Face Off for Mental Health is another one that is a regular one, and coming up again, right? Yeah. And that sort of comes back from the how-to approach, to how that got started, right? A hockey coach that says, "Hey, I'm seeing these things, but I don't know how to deal with this stuff."
Sure.
St. Clair Child and Youth seems to be helping many different organizations in the community as well.
Well, in our Suicide Prevention Committee is made up of professionals from all different agencies, like Canadian Mental Health, St. Clair Child and Youth, Rebound, the mental health and addiction nurses in the schools, Rapids Family Health Team. There's a really lengthy list of professionals in our community that sit on that committee, and so it's great because we can collaborate. We can talk about what each agency is doing and how we're moving forward and that sort of thing, and make sure that we're not duplicating service, and make sure that we're sharing information, which is key, right? One of the things we collaborated on was a photography exhibit that we had at First Friday at ARTOPIA on Friday.
Yeah.
So we had 10 individuals that shared their story and agreed to be photographed, and it was pretty powerful. People who came to visit the exhibit were, they were sort of, I think, shocked at how powerful the messaging was and how brave these individuals were to share their stories. So those 10 people put themselves out there and made themselves vulnerable in order to make an impact on people who were there to see it, which was really profound, which is I was amazed at the sort of the response from the community. It was pretty impactful.
Well, I guess that's the part of the thing too, is the fact that it is profound, because it takes, because we know there's still that stigma out there, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, he or she's having, look, they're having those issues, and fear of being judged, and will our coworkers look differently at us now? And I guess, and if people who are I guess even well known in a community might struggle with that even more. So when they do step forward, it really does have a positive impact from the community. And when this exhibit came out, were you getting feedback from people?
Yes, in fact, people who visited the exhibit were just amazed at the willingness of those individuals to be vulnerable. And I feel like for the people that were there that had been photographed, they told me like they felt supported. They felt that people accepted their story, and it was a really I think a really positive experience for everyone who did get photographed.
Yeah.
And the photographer who did the photos was, she said, I knew it was going to be emotional, and I knew it was going to be but it was, I think, even more powerful than we anticipated, which was, and Corrine, who runs Artopia, like embraced the project right away. And we were just really pleased with how it turned out.
Yeah. So what other kind of things are happening around the community today? And it's also World Suicide Prevention Month. Is that correct?
Yes. So in our community, we've done different things over the years. We've had events at Lambton Mall, which were sort of more of a, kind of like a drop-in, an open house kind of a format where anybody who was at the mall could participate. Last year we partnered with Danielle Cooper with Sarnia Speaks, and we had a wonderful event where people shared their stories and there was resources there. So we focused on the photo exhibit, the yellow ribbons, and the signage this year for businesses, and also Rapids Family Health Team runs a group for survivors, a grief group. And so the people who have completed that group or are still involved with that group are doing their own ceremony tonight, which is, I heard a little bit about it and it sounds really powerful. They're walking down from hospice down to Centennial Park, and they're going to do some sort of an exercise where they remember their loved ones, and they, tie yellow ribbons around the trees there, and each of them will have a flower, and they'll commemorate their loved one and sort of have a moment where they appreciate the opportunity to be together and to support one another.
Yeah, it's it's one thing when you see organizations like St. Clair Child Youth Services putting things together, but when the community steps up on its own to say, hey, let's put something on ourselves and put support out there to those who are still dealing with this, right? And again, it's one of those things that until it happens to you, you necessarily really don't know which direction do I go to.
Sure.
The St. Clair Child Youth Services has a walk-in clinic as well. Is that correct?
That's right. Every Tuesday from noon until 8, with the last appointment starting at 6:30, and every Thursday from 9 until 12, with the last appointment going in at 10:30. So twice a week, if somebody were struggling and feeling like they needed support, they don't have to wait. They don't have to go on a wait list. They come for a single session of therapy with a social worker and a CYW listening therapist. And, they might come away with some practical strategies to try, or they might come away with an appointment for a next appointment. It just depends on what the situation calls for. This morning I went through McDonald's for my Diet Coke, like I do every morning, and a friend of mine, Karen Sars, she had made 250 yellow ribbons, and she was handing them out to folks in the drive-thru. And it was interesting. She said she was shocked at how many people politely declined the ribbon. And she asked me, what do you think? Why do you think that is? And I said, well, I can only think of one thing, and that's that we need to do a better job around the stigma. Maybe they didn't want to wear the yellow ribbon and have people ask them what it was for. Maybe they didn't want to talk about it. I don't know. Or maybe they have something.
You thought maybe it was me that was having the trouble. I don't want you thinking that, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Karen did the same thing last year, but I think she made more ribbons this year because they were gone in a heartbeat.
Right.
But it's people like Karen who are kind of going the extra mile. She doesn't work for an agency.
Right.
She's just doing this because it's the right thing to do and to be part of the conversation. I've been really encouraged by the amount of yellow ribbons around the city. The first year we did it, there was a few, and committee members did their homes and family members and that sort of thing. But it's really catching on. And I think if we can build on that every year, it's a win.
Just keep going, right? That's we need more Karens out there.
Yeah, Karen. Yeah. Deb Patel, she's a woman who she was impacted by suicide. She's one of the photos. She lost her son years ago, and since then she has been tirelessly raising money to support the free Safe Talk training. Kim Shaw, she's been having ball hockey tournaments and golf tournaments to keep Steph's memory alive, but to provide funds so that we can, expand services and training, wherever we can, right? Yeah. So people like that, local champions. Lindsay Kirkland, who does stigma survivors. I mean, she's tirelessly supporting the recreational therapy component at the Blue Water Health by raising funds and trying to buy more, games and activities and that sort of thing for the youth that are on the unit. Right. So there's lots of people doing some pretty amazing things out there that, quietly going about their business. So it's pretty incredible if you think about, in a city this size. I can name a whole bunch.
Yeah. Well, what you and I know from being around this town long enough, it is at the end of the day, it's a really supportive community, and
Absolutely.
especially
Sarnia
for youth
Sings, like
programs.
Adam Dumont, like Sarnia
Yeah,
Sings is huge. I mean, you were very involved in that. And it's not just about the dollars being raised, it's
no,
about the opportunity to have that conversation and to meet people and to feel part of a community.
yeah,
Ashley Neisbart is another person who I feel is a local champion. She is constantly looking for opportunities to, how can I help? What can I do? Can I ask my friends for donation, and can it pay for somebody's private counseling if they need it, if they're a survivor? Like, she's always looking for opportunities. So
yeah. Well, and kudos to you and everybody down at St. Clair Child and Youth who, although be it your job, it's still something that I know is close to everybody down there, and taking care of community that walks through the door and is asking for help, I guess, which is one of the first steps, and recognizing I need help and I don't know where to go. So St. Clair Child and Youth Services is a great place to start.
sure is. And I think, similarly around the table at our suicide prevention meetings, Canadian Mental Health, there's other agencies that probably do as much work in this area as we do, just with different age groups, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it starting in the high schools and even public
Mm-hmm.
schools. There's things happening there to support the children as well, because like we said earlier, it really can start as young as, like, I mean, I don't know, how young does this start?
Oh,
To talk?
I wouldn't even want to guess.
Yeah,
I do know that there's been children as young as 5 and 6 years old who
right.
have articulated that they're struggling with suicidal thoughts, and maybe even younger. I'm just talking about my own experience, but it's social media and the impact of social media and the pressures that our kids today face, I think, is a huge component in the conversation. Back in the day when we were kids, we could go home from school and take a break from the pressures and the bullying,
Yeah,
the mean kid component
sure.
at school. We could take a break and ignore all that and recharge and go back with a different perspective.
Yeah,
Nowadays kids are on 24/7.
it's right here.
Yeah, and that's under their pillow or beside their bed, or
Yeah,
they can't escape from it. So it's like a constant barrage of pressure to be one thing or another, right?
yeah,
And just when they think they have it figured out, okay, this is how I'm going to roll and I'm doing okay, then the landscape changes and they have to shift, and
right.
and depending on their coping strategies or their support network, they may not feel able to
Yeah.
feeling
Well,
overwhelmed, right?
yeah, absolutely. And at any age, right? Even because
Sure.
we carry them too, right?
For sure.
And all that stuff. Liz, thank you very much. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know it's a busy day for you, and it could chop into the middle of your day, but this is the positive social media that we're trying to put out there to make
For sure.
everybody aware. So your time is important to share. So thanks very much. Is there anything else you want to add before I do let you go?
Just that there's whenever we talk about suicide, we want to make sure that people can access the resources. So www.sarnia-lambton-suicide prevention committee if you go to the Sarnia Lambton Suicide Prevention Committee website,
Okay.
there's a list of resources. So if you just Google Sarnia Lambton Suicide Prevention Committee, you'll get the website, the list of resources. Suzanne McLean is our coordinator. She does a fabulous job of keeping us organized and leading us, and you can actually send her a direct email if you're interested in a Safe Talk training, and she'll add your name to a list. So we're just
Perfect.
we're really pleased with how the community has been supportive of World Suicide Prevention Day this year, and we're hopeful that it's going to grow every year.
Perfect. We'll post those links on the Facebook page after the show here as
Awesome.
well.
That'd be great.
Liz, thanks again so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Dave.
All right.
Bye-bye.
There you go. Bye-bye. Liz Page from St. Clair Child and Youth Services talking with us about World Suicide Prevention Day. We're going to post the links on our Facebook page so you can get more information and share. Right? Share, talk about it, keep talking, and hopefully we can start bringing the numbers down, right? Wanted to bring this in a special way to you today to support World Suicide Prevention Day. Thanks to our friend Liz Page from St. Clair Child and Youth Services. And to all of you, have a wonderful, fantastic day and take care of each other. Bye for now.